Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's time for us to review the newspapers. Hopefully, the papers will have stories that may bring some warmth to this very, very cold, rainy morning in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm not very optimistic, right? But we have with us public affairs analyst Theophilus Akatugba. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
And happy pre-independence.
Oh, thank you, and I wish you a very happy celebration of the 64th anniversary of our dear country.
Well, that's subject to multiple interpretations. But let's share with you what the front pages of the papers are saying this morning. The Punch newspaper, October 1st protest, policeman flashpoints, APC opposition clash. State police commands deploy teams, organizers insist on rally as PDP and Labour Party berate APC. Nigeria at 64, Obasanjo, Akpabio, SGF, service chiefs grace Thanksgiving service. Federal government raises teams to avert ASU strike. Police begin probe as lion kills keeper in Obasanjo library. I saw that very sad story, 35-year-old boy gone just like that. Man. Constitution amendment. Regional government tops 56 memoranda to National Assembly. Naira for crude deal begins Tuesday, Tinubu panel. 17 governors raise minimum wage panels. Cameroon Dam, NEMA crew monitors Niger and Benue rivers. I've surpassed the tractor's 8-year achievement, says Fubara. That's all on the front page of the Punch. Let's move over to another paper.
All right, the Daily Times this morning says more than 40% of Nigerians now enjoy 20 hours of power supply daily, says Adelabu. Credits achievements to achievement in power sector to radical, bold steps taken by Tinubu administration. You know, I think it's also important to clarify, you know, it must be 40% of those who are metered and those who are connected to the electricity grid. It's not 40% of Nigerians. It is those who, you know, are directly connected to Nigeria's electricity grid, I guess. All right. It says here also, oil theft, NNPC dismantles over 8,000 illegal refineries, 5,800 pipelines in 6 months. Federal government approves 350 billion naira to support dams and irrigation facilities, says Minister. Prioritizing local value addition is key to Africa's industrialization, says Alake, who is the Minister of Solid Minerals, I believe. And, you know, in 4 years' time, you know, I think it will be important to ask what we've achieved or what has changed really in the Ministry of Solid, Minerals. What have we been able to do with regards earning more foreign exchange from solid minerals? There's always been those claims that that is one sector of Nigeria that it's not ignored, you know, but it just seems to have, how to express it? So there's a lot that we can gain from it, you know, that it seems we turn the blind eye to it and just focus on oil. While there are certain individuals who are making money, you know, in that sector. But we'll see. Federal government hands over 64 CNG buses to labor unions and NANs. Also, troops foil ISWAP insurgents attack, recover weapons in Borno State. That's all on the Daily Times. Let's go to the Vanguard newspapers now.
All right, on the front page of the Vanguard, October 1st, police deploy in states as organizers insist on protests. There's so many other riders to the story that we can maybe take much later. We can see there, okay, government failed to address protesters' demands. Dejade Anju says, hopes more detained protesters will be released today. Refrain from any acts of violence, federal government says. These are all sub-stories to the October 1st protest. Labour accuses IOCs, manning agents of exploiting port workers. Cement, demand soars amidst price hikes, declining purchasing power. Serap Twinec chair, obey judgment on electoral offences or ellipsis. Nigeria could end insecurity in 1 year if ellipsis, says Ndume. And in the world of sports, Finidi Rivers United overpower Eyimba. At the top of the paper, we have over 40% of Nigerians now enjoy 20 hours of electricity, according to Power Minister. We'll resist Unitarianism in Nigerian politics, says Afenifere. And final story, federal government hands over 64 CNG buses to labor unions and NAS. All right, let's start with the protests. Every paper has a big story about the protests. Police have deployed in states as organizers have insisted on protests. Your thoughts concerning the October 1st planned protests and the efficacy of the protests?
Well, my thought is that at every opportunity is good for any citizen that is aggrieved, that is unhappy with the conditions in the country to vent their opinion, to express their opinion, to amplify it as loud as possible. So October 1st, 64th years of Nigerian existence, the protesters want to speak loud and clear to government and to anyone who cares to listen that the conditions in the country are not as desired, and they are very difficult. And so I commend those who want to protest, because if you don't say anything, those who are in government might not understand. So protest is it's actually part of the artifacts of democracy, and so I believe. But as far as the efficacy, the problem I have in this country is that people think protest must be a procession. You don't necessarily have to proceed or have a procession. You can gather in one spot and amplify your voice as loud as possible because of the risk of infiltration, which is very palpable because you have so many miscreants on our streets. If you say you have a very high poverty rate, you should expect that you have a lot of miscreants around. And so this is what has always been challenges of everyone who planned a protest. Not because protests are bad, they can be very effective. They can really drive a message both locally and internationally and everywhere in the world. Even when you see the democratic conventions in the US, the Jews and those who support, who have an opinion, they came there to protest. Yeah. But these things must be done peacefully. Yeah, I mean, that's what civilization is all about.
As much as, there's a reminder that it must be peaceful, talk also about the Nigerian government's response to protests, and its response to criticism. In the last long while, we saw the reactions to the End Bad Governance protest.
So the Nigerian government is a government that is undergoing very dangerous reforms. They are very conversant with the risk and the very charged atmosphere. And so everything they are doing is to avoid an escalation of chaos. So every government will play the role they are playing because they know that all these reforms, they are at the very heart of every Nigerian who want to protest, because the reforms touches the very core of the economic well-being of every Nigerian. So government is just afraid of a snowballing of a protest like you found that in Bangladesh, where the president had to is it Bangladesh?
But it doesn't work.
But the protest in Egypt. So once the government is afraid of that protest, that's why you see governments doing everything to stop it.
So if you say that the reforms that they're carrying out, they're going to be very painful, and so they expect protest, should your response then be to arrest possible protesters and charge them with treason?
Well, there are treasonable actions that can happen within a very genuine protest. That is the idea. If you raise a flag of another country, if you bogo a shop, if you cause arson, all of that can be...
Is that treason?
No. Listen to me. Those who carried flags and they arrested a few people and they asked questions. So the government has a lot more information. They are not arresting everyone who went out to protest, but they have picked some people and they've charged them. You're charging anybody for any crime doesn't mean that you have evidence. So it's government to now present the evidence. Government is only acting. Government agencies, the police, they have a job to do, and they are trying to satisfy their paymaster. And so don't expect the police to pat you in the back when they know that they have to make a report of how many people did you arrest, how many people did you prosecute, and what will you be charging them for if not treason?
So you randomly just pick people up, because you need to please, pay masters, and then you charge them with treason.
We know these things. We need to just defend those who have cases that are not, you go to the court. The government is in a very difficult place, and I have pity for them, because what they are doing, sometimes they misstep, they do the wrong things. So charging them with treason is just, overboard. But as I told you, do not think that there were no people who had other agenda.
There could be.
That's not exactly, not to disagree with the fact that there can be other people who have other agendas and other people who may be interested in quote-unquote sponsoring a protest. But I think the underlying cause of the protest is a discomfort, a general discomfort that Nigerians are experiencing the general sense of not being able to make ends meet, day-to-day living.
Yeah.
So if the government has done its part, and that's not to say that even when the government is an effective government, there will not be people that would disagree with the government. I think there would always be opposition. But on the larger scale, there's a general sense of an inability to survive the current reality.
Of discontent.
Discontent.
No, I agree with. I'm
discomfort.
only saying that he was asking, should the government do this? We are not government. We are not privileged. We don't have enough information. But on the surface, the optics are bad for government to, charge people who were caught during a protest, charge them with treason. It's difficult to explain. But what I'm saying is that you can charge anybody, but do you have enough evidence, to convict them?
Yeah, but from what we've seen, the Nigerian government, doesn't seem to need to have evidence to get somebody arrested and keep you there as long as possible, while they look for evidence. That's not, what we've seen as being their method of approach for a long time. Previous governments, this government, it's pretty much the same thing, pretty much the same people. And then you said you feel sorry for them.
Yes, I feel
it must
sorry
be very, very tough living in that 21 billion naira house, the vice president. It must be very stressful flying that 100
billion. We called the 21 billion
naira
as though it was
$100 million.
The 21 billion project was not started.
No, but here's
was a project Nigeria has started spending money on.
Here's the thing, man.
Can I
and this is what. No, let me just finish. Because this is what Nigerians see, right? That make them not believe in any way, shape, or form that it is justice reforms that are making things tough. The government itself has not acted in any way to support the calls for, just going through these hard times together and bearing with the reforms that have to happen. If we have government that is continuing to act like they're completely oblivious to the pain that Nigerians are dealing with, Nigeria still spent 90 billion naira sending people on for hard.
Well, good thing is that
Nigeria still spend, and there's no. Listen, I understand the fact that they had made these plans to build the vice president's residence long ago, and so
they had even spent most of the money.
It doesn't matter. You know why?
Okay, hold on.
Because if you need to convince 200 million people that times are tough, we understand, we are with you, then there are certain things that you should not do, and it's not. The country would go on without. Will the country go on without a residence or not?
It will.
Okay. But will the country go on without spending 90 billion naira on Hajj?
On Hajj, it will go.
Will the country go on somehow, somewhere, without Mr. President buying a new jet for himself or a yacht?
Okay.
It will go on.
Let me explain to you. The country could go on, but the gains and the danger we face could be worse than you imagine. For example, let's take a look at the jet. If the president's jet is reported to have had fault once or twice, if it's reported and there's been an advice that you need to change it, and the president's plane, crashes and the president dies, like it happened in Rwanda and Burundi. Hold on. You will now say the cost becomes too much for the country. So once they say that particular jet is bad, this country, for security reasons, for the safety
but you also know that
hold on. We cannot use that. We cannot use the jet as a basis. That's not what we really. Our country can acquire another jet for our president for the safety of the president and the presidency and the country as a whole.
Okay. Are there presidents that don't have their national carrier?
No, any president. Nigeria is more than that. We are not in the league of. Hold on. No, we are not in the league. Don't turn us.
Not in the league of who now?
No, we are not in such league. There are countries that don't have. I'm sure Ghana doesn't have.
Does the UK have its national carrier? The UK uses its Royal Air Force.
No, I can't tell you that.
No, I'm telling you, the UK uses the Royal Air Force.
I can't respond whether yes or no. What I'm saying, Nigeria has a culture already. We have a very volatile system. This is not a country that is like the United Kingdom. We are still very much behind in development. Some of these things we speak about when we compare ourselves with advanced nations. The presidents of those countries can ride a bicycle, but our president might not be able because someone might knock him off because of the discontent, the divisions. This country is very, very polarized.
Okay. That's not the citizens' problem. It's not.
That is part of all of our, because the citizens make the government. This government we are talking about are citizens.
No, Mr. Anyway, I think we spend too much time talking about this.
Just to really add to that, even the president's private jet the quality, the durability, or whatever,
yes.
presidential jet, has been questioned. But what then would your explanation be for the billions of naira that was spent for the vice presidential apartment, as well as Hajj? I mean,
well, I can't, you know, Hajj, I have always said Hajj spending and spending on religious pilgrimages are wasteful.
Just to quickly
but
add,
politicians do it for political reasons.
And just to quickly add, right, these are just excerpts, examples. They're a much larger representation of why Nigerians will feel great discontent. Now, the truth is, regardless of which presidential candidate came into power, chances that things will still get bad are there. However, the one thing is you can't tell people to fasten their seatbelt when you are on cruise control, right? If Nigerians can't see that their government is tightening is fastening its belt and cutting down expenses as well, it's rather unfair and unkind to ask citizens to understand, because they don't see the political class understanding as well. I think that's the point that he's driving.
No, I agree with you generally, but we are picking issues, so I'm responding to the issues. Government has a responsibility to show to the people that it's as frugal and
and has it done that so far?
No, as lean. But when I say the country has spent maybe 10, 15 billion on a vice president office or apartment, and then we want that 15 billion to go waste or stagnated because we need to complete it with 10 billion, it's not a wise decision. A wise decision is to complete it and put it
so far, in summary, you say you feel pity for the current administration.
Yes, I feel pity for them.
Do you think that they have exemplified a frugal government, a government that understands?
It's a struggle, because when you come into office and you see the kind of indebtedness, the kind of physical challenges that you have in order to be able to even run, it's just become, I became president of an association and I met empty coffers. It's not easy to stabilize the ship of an organization. You have bills to pay, you don't have the resources, your revenue are low, your commitments are great. So it's a difficult tough for the government. Let's not deceive ourselves. Nigeria squandered a lot of things in the past. And now every government is a victim. This one and the next. They'll be victims.
So that means there's no hope.
There is hope, but that's why the paths we are told, the government says this path will bring us to prosperity. The question is how and when we should be asking them, because it's not about whether. What they have done is difficult to protect and save the government from collapse and save our economy from collapse. That's what they told us. We want to know now. They did it in chaotic situation. They didn't allow enough measures to cushion the effect. So they took the steps, bounced all the effect on the citizens. Now they are struggling to find how to palliate. That is the problem. It's not moving fast enough. Government is too slow in responding. And that has always been the problem of this country.
Well, Mr. Akatugba, there are too many conversations that I wish that we can take. Unfortunately, we seem to be out of time. But as quickly as possible, Ali Ndume says Nigerians could end insecurity in 1 year. Do you believe that?
I disagree with him. He doesn't know. He's just talking. They say these things just to grab headlines. Insecurity in Nigeria is deeply rooted in the poverty situation, the cultural situation in the northern part of Nigeria, the openness of the border, the fact that they can't identify who is Nigerian. The problems are multifaceted, and then the Sahel, the influx of the Fulanis and all the various people come into the country without any check. It's easy when you come to this part of the country where security conscious. You go to the northern part, it's an open space. Nobody checks anybody. Everyone is a Nigerian. And so these are issues. What it's telling me is just part of the normal statements to grab headlines. Not possible in 1 year.
Yeah, so what is the time frame you think that would work?
It's a long walk.
So what do you think your predictions are? Do you think that in 4 years, in 2027, we would have seen headway with the current administration and its reforms, and that by that time would have a clear, picture of where Nigeria is headed?
It would be a great political risk.
And I'm talking about with security, with the economy.
Yeah, this president would have taken the worst and the most dangerous political risk of his career, because he won't get a second term by taking this kind of reforms. If these situations continue without visible improvement, it means that
the current INEC.
Of course. INEC?
Yeah.
No, INEC does not determine our election. Nigerians do. Nigerians are the members of INEC. Nigerians, when it's time for election, is a huge bazaar. It's a trade. Even the NYC students and everyone goes to trade to look for money, not INEC.
So you trust the institution of INEC?
INEC is, elections are being conducted by primary school students. What's election? Vote and count. Nigerians just go to trade. and they manipulate
Which is a strong point, and I think
They are very,
totally
it's
agree
a
with
whole country, a gamut of money-seeking human beings. Get somebody to come in and work as an ad hoc. He tells everybody there that, look, what can I do? What can we do together?
Yeah.
It's a huge, it's not an what's election? Secondary school students can conduct it. Vote, we can't.
I totally agree. And I think it's one of the things I'm going to be harping on with Which Way Nigeria Today, even, that, if you don't have people who are open to being corrupt, INEC will probably not have the issues that it has. Neither would have corruption in the law courts or any other place.
And
it is because mentally the Nigerian is open to corruption.
I agree with you, and I agree that our moral fabric has been broken.
It's broken.
It's really torn apart.
We are not even sustaining it. We are justifying it. I've met with a lot of people who had the opportunity to work with INEC, and the way they celebrate their gains, I feel cold. I've seen voters who actually prepare to go sell the vote.
So in a sense, I think that is just, again, our moral fabric being torn apart, because we see it not just with people celebrating INEC, we see it when people are lobbying for political positions because they see how very
people within the civil service lobbying for prime postings.
Yes, we need to go now. We're going to break. Okay. Mr. Akatugba, thank you for joining us this morning.
It's been a pleasure.